That's been my thing all day. I keep thinking it's Monday and now it's Tuesday. So hopefully you guys had a fabulous Tuesday.
I remember to start the recording. I feel like that's a win.
This is a win. We're good. We're starting. Wow.
How are you guys? Are you good? We'll give people a minute or two to jump on. Did you have a good holiday weekend? Shake your heads if nothing else. Yes, you did.
Yay. I did.
Awesome.
I needed some time off and I took it. I was happy for that.
That is fantastic. We have an amazing speaker for you tonight. Anna Hughes is amazing. Do you want to introduce yourself or you want me to introduce you? Well, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
I can introduce myself. That's fine. I just hope that I live up to your expectations.
You will more than live up to my expectations. Let me just give the disclaimer in the beginning that I started she spoke a while ago on one of our superstar director calls about this amazing, like the system she had created for connecting with her frontline. And it was eye-opening to me, and it changed everything, especially in the fact that my frontline was very wide. We were over, I think, 120 or 130 at that point in my frontline, and there were many, many, many that I wasn't connecting with, that I was never ever connecting with, just because they didn't show up on my radar. And it was like this light bulb moment. I was like, oh my gosh, you're so smart, and I'm so stupid. Why didn't I think to do this? And I know that there are so many leaders who have had the same experience. So the floor is yours. Feel free to share anything you want, the why of it, the what you do, the how you do it, anything. It's all you.
Okay, well, I guess I really should just kind of give you a background into why this all came about, because honestly, well, I'm Anna Hughes, by the way, superstar director. I'm in Washington State, so it's still gorgeous outside here. You guys are all getting in the dark. I promoted last October, but I joined in 2013. When I joined, I just wanted to be save a little money for Christmas and get my Scentsy for cheaper, that sort of thing. So I wasn't doing anything spectacular. In fact, I didn't have any team members at all for the first 2 years of my Scentsy business. I was a team of just me for 2 years. And about a year in, I got a random recruit. She didn't know how to use a computer. She was in Louisiana, obviously a long ways away from me. But I coached her to shooting star, which I had not earned personally. But it gave me that confidence that, okay, maybe I can do this as a leader. Well, I was not on the radar of my sponsor because I rolled up 6 times to my current sponsor. I've rolled up 6 times now. So if you've got a deep downline as far as you've got people who've got people, and my sales were never terrible, although at one point I was on the will cancel list. They were never spectacular, and I wasn't recruiting. So I wasn't somebody who would really naturally be on your radar, right? I wasn't doing $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 a month, or cranking out team members to what would normally pique your interest when you pull your reports, right? And I know that you guys are all superstar consultant and up, or star consultant and up, pushing for director. So you know what I mean by pulling reports and looking for those top salespeople and those people who are growing teams. So by definition, I wasn't somebody who should be on a radar. So it's hard to form a relationship with your upline who didn't recruit you when you've rolled up several times in an authentic way, right? So when I started doing the things, when I figured out the whole recruiting piece, and I recruited 41 that year. So obviously going from not a whole lot to doing a lot of things, I got noticed. And it was hard to build that relationship at first. My sponsor would call me and I would send her to voicemail, and she would send me mail and I just wasn't interested, so I'd throw it away. What this is to help you prevent that from becoming you, right? You don't want to be that person, but at the same time, we think, oh my God, your downline's growing. There's so many people. How do you connect with all those people? How do you see those small wins? Because that's really what it's about, is being able to recognize the small wins so that they continue to replicate that, right? Because what we recognize is what gets repeated. So pulling a report, really, really hard to do that. Touching base with everybody, I thought, let's see, I promoted to star director, and at about that time, I remember feeling so overwhelmed with the number of Frontline and the number of Frontline who had Frontline that was killing it, and not really knowing how to connect with these people. And personally, I felt like printing off a list of my entire team and going on the list and just reaching out to, at the time, I think there were like 250 people in my team. Is it doable to contact 250 people in a month? Absolutely, it's doable. But on what level is that actually authentic communication and connection? Because realistically, this business, you hear over and over and over, is a relationships business. And it's not just relationships between you and your customers, or you and your potential team members, or you and your hosts, but it's relationships with you and your frontline, and you and your downline, and you and your rock stars that's going to keep them here long term. It's going to help them push to reach their own goals when they know what their goals are and you know what their goals are. But there had to be a system in place for that, because you can't just, like I said, print off a list of everybody in your team and check in and say, hey, Stephanie, how's it going this month? Hey, Emily, how's it going this month? There's no authentic conversation there. It's not constructive. And instead of trying to spend the time before coaching calls to figure out what did they do last month, what did they do the month before, you had to go into your reports and click on that person and see their graph. That's not, it's not the best way. So I started thinking, about our bar report. And you guys probably don't know a lot about that because that's something that you get when you hit director. But what it does is it monitors what we did for our PRV in January, and our personal recruits in January, and our group wholesale volume in January, and our number of active frontline in January, and then February, and then March, and then April. And we can see all of our own statistics, but you don't see that for your downline. But how valuable would it be if you had something like that for your downline? So that's where this really came from, is a way to recognize what's normal for someone or not normal for someone. Because for me, if I pull a top 10 list for my top 10 performers for my group or my team, there's never going to be somebody on that list that's under $1,000 in PRV. But if there is somebody in your downline that normally is active every single month, oh my gosh, bless their heart, they're active every single month. And then they have a $600 month. That person is not going to end up on my top 10 list. And that person is not going to get the recognition that they really need, because holy crap, girl, you just did something totally like wild. You just did 3 times the PRV that you normally do this last month. So how do you find that? How do you recognize that? How do you identify those sorts of things that are happening? How do you identify somebody who normally does 500 PRV every single month, and for the last 2 months, they've only done $120 or they've done $87? How do you identify that? How do you know that? How does that person not get missed in the shuffle? Because the connection of what's going on in their life and where they are in their business and all of these things, it's a lot when you start talking about a large frontline and a large team and a large group. So there has to be a system in place. And this isn't meant to seem inauthentic, but it is a way for you to make sure that you're not missing these things, and that you can have like honest, constructive, quality conversation with your downline. So the idea when I started it was, I'm just going to talk to my frontline. I'm just going to talk to my frontline. At the time, it was like 60 or 70 people. And I thought, okay, this is doable. I'm just going to track my frontline's numbers. Okay. So I started tracking everybody's numbers, and it was just a very basic graph of numbers. And on the backside, I put little notes about the person as far as, what they did for another job, if they did another job, and their spouse's names and their kids' names, or their kids' ages, or their pets, the pets that they had, or what they like to do on the weekends. It wasn't necessarily like, it seems like it's totally cheating, and maybe it is, but you can't possibly remember all these details about all these people in order to be a good sponsor and have connection with them. So am I asking every single person the list of things that are on the back all at one time? No, I'm not. But if I say, if we get into conversation about where they were last month, girlfriend, I saw that you did 500 PRV last month. That's amazing. Good for you. What did you do different? We can talk about that. And, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're going camping. Do you tent camp or do you trailer camp? Oh, we tent camp. That's when I fill those things in on the back, because those are the details that I have acquired in a authentic manner, so I can use them in our conversations later to look like I remember the stuff that there's no way I'm gonna remember. So the idea behind all of this is just knowing where they've been so that you can compare what they're doing now, and knowing more about them so that you can connect with them better. So every single person gets one of these sheets in my Frontline when I started. And the idea was I could keep an eye on their PRV. So I'm going to show you this one, and I've covered their last name for, well, they're not even with us, but we'll still do that. So this person, she'd been with me for a long time, and 140 PRV, 212 PRV. So here I put a check for her being on the will cancel list. 222 PRV, check. Every 4th month she's on the will cancel list, right? Well, this is not a big deal. She's not going to come up on my radar, but by monitoring just my Frontline, I can see that, well, shoot, she's got no new recruits, but 2, 5, her team is growing and her GWV is growing. There is somebody under her that I need to be monitoring. So while I was just saying monitor my Frontline, I was still monitoring my future Frontline, because eventually this person cancels, and she did. And somebody rolled up to me as Frontline. So future Frontline, we're saying they're kind of under a dud. I don't mean that in the meanest way, but you know what I'm saying, because I was on the will cancel list too. I could say that. So it is what it is. But I promise you, you have people like me in your downline that are just doing, I want to get my Scentsy for cheaper, I just want to make some money for Christmas, who might end up on the will cancel list because they're about to deliver their child. My kid is now 6, but when I was delivering him, I was on the will cancel list. So how can you develop a relationship with people so that they stick through that stuff and then develop their own personal potential? And that's really the biggest thing, is you want to build relationships authentically and be able to identify things. So another thing that I put on this list, on this last column here, was mail, because I'm contacting these people every month, but I also want them to get something from me in the mail at least every 3 to 4 months. So that means that every 3 to 4 times a year, they're getting mail from me, even if they're not in the top 10, even if they didn't sell 500, even if they didn't get a recruit. They're going to hear from me for their birthday. They're going to hear from me for a Scentiversary or a Christmas card, or, oh my gosh, you've been active for 6 months in a row. Look at you. Or you just did your best month ever. How do you notice those sorts of things unless you have a system for that? That's where this came from. So I started doing this. My active Frontline has increased ridiculously. I wish I had a statistic for you, but when I first talked about this system at Scentsy Family Reunion in, where were we? Austin? Yeah, in Austin. Was it Austin? I don't know. It's been a couple of years and I have no idea where I am right now. But I talked about this at Scentsy Family Reunion, and I brought a statistic with me of number of Frontline active for a star consultant to a star consultant. Same GWV, same PRV. number of frontline active low here, number of active frontline high here. So same PRV, same GWV. It seems like it should be similar, but the paychecks are completely different. So definitely go back, and if you register for Sensi Family Reunion this year, I did that, and I did have my printouts for that then for online. So check that out. Same thing with director. GWV 10,000, PRV, I don't know, it was like 1,500 or 2,000, but the paycheck is so much higher when you have active frontline. So how do you get these people in your frontline to be active? Well, one, you've got to recruit all these people and get them into your frontline, but two, build connections with them so that they're engaged in your business. If you ever feel like you have crickets in your team page, check your relationships. If you ever feel like, you know, you're doing it all and your team's not necessarily engaging in anything, whether it's numbers or the team page or whatever, check your relationships, because more often than not, they're not as invested and you can help them be invested. So find their why with them, establish what it is that they want to do with Sensi. Do they want to pay for their daughter's dance lessons, or do they want to quit their full-time nursing career? I didn't want that in the beginning, but unless you build that relationship and continue to have these conversations and see where they're at, you'll never know that that's what's going to change. So when I went from, I want to make some money for Christmas, to I got to get the heck out of this operating room and go home with my son, there wasn't somebody there in the middle of that. And I want you to be able to build that with your frontline, at least your frontline. Since I started this program, I have gone from monitoring just my frontline to monitoring my entire team. It's a lot. I'll admit it is a lot to monitor your entire team, but you're going to identify some people that are deeper if you can do that. And I tell my directors in training, so my star consultants and superstar consultants who are doing this, monitor your entire team until you're a director at least. Because realistically, if you're a star consultant or a superstar consultant, you don't have a team of 100. You can monitor 100 people. You can monitor 50 people. I promise you, because I typically monitor about 250 people. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And it's much better to do part of it than not do anything at all. So do frontline if you have to only do frontline, but I strongly encourage you to just do your whole team if you can do your whole team. It's kind of like working out. It's like, it's better to work out twice a week than to not work out at all. It's better to monitor your entire team, but if you're only going to do part, then just do part. It's not just about tracking numbers. Granted, what we measure grows and what we don't measure doesn't. So if you measure it, it's going to get better. But that's just part of it. So you can monitor all you want, but if you don't use the data that you collect to build the relationships and guide the people, you're going to miss the boat on a lot of that too. Think of it like working out and then eating like crap, right? You're not going to get the same results as if you do both, right? So it'd be great to say work out 7 days a week and eat right, but and if it's more realistic for you to only work out 2 days a week, monitoring your front line instead of your whole team, and eat right, checking in with people every week or every month, that's going to be up to you and what you can accomplish. But I promise you that if you implement something like this, the time that you use to connect with your team is going to be so much more meaningful, that it's more meaningful to have a conversation with people that is constructive to them once a month than it is a, hey girl, how's your month going, every week. Because that's not authentic conversation. And I know that personally, if somebody did that to me, I'd be like, they just want to know where my PRV is going to come from. They just want to know if I have more orders to put in. You don't want to be that person. You want to be the person who's like, even if it's only once a month, having constructive, quality, I care about you conversation enough to know that you guys like tent camping, you know? So you're not going to have all the answers right away. You're not going to know what they collect. You're not going to know what they're motivated by. Maybe you are, but when I started this, I thought it would be great to send them the questionnaire I sent it to them. Like I literally put it in the mail and a self-addressed stamp, and I sent it off to them, and all they had to do was fill it out and put it back in the self-addressed pre-stamped envelope and send it back to me, and I have everything, right? They don't do it. They don't do it because it's important to you, but it's not important to them, and it's not authentic. It's not taking the time to get to know somebody. So when I started not getting them back, I decided, oh, I'm just going to do a Google form. Then all they have to do, I can send them the link and they can fill out the form. It's still not authentic. So it's better to only have 2 or 3 of the answers in the getting to know you file than it is to have everything filled out. It's better for you to just do 2 or 3 or 1 here or 1 here every time that you talk, and just kind of compile it little by little by little, if that makes sense. So, files wise, I know they're in the what did you share page, but I'm sure Karen can grab those and share them with you. But I don't know if you guys have any other questions about it. Let's talk questions though, because that's really skinny.
So if you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, or you can unmute and ask. A couple things that when I started doing it that I picked up on that I never would have caught before were the people who were 1 out of every 4 months active, and oh my gosh, they were active 3 months in a row, or someone who maybe had 500 a month and then went a couple months with nothing. It was like, what happened in their life? It was, those were the eye-opening moments for me, and they were definitely people that never would have showed up on my radar. I mean, ever. And what you're doing that I think you do so well is you build community by doing this. And that's why people stay with the company long term. It's not just, I mean, they can love the product, they can make some money, but when you have someone that sticks around, I've got someone who joined 11 years ago. I'm almost to 12 years, and they joined almost 11 years ago, and they put in, 201 out of every 4 months. They stay for the community, not for the products at that point, So I need to know when there's something going on in their life, because they're a valuable part of our group, even though they are 201 out of every 4 months, So I love it. This has changed so much for me, and I'm so grateful when you
don't you just feel like a way more quality leader just having some of this at your fingertips?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you could theoretically go in, run a leadership report, click on a person, look at their graph, but that's only going to show you part of it. It's only going to show you their PRV or their GWV. It's not going to show you active frontline. It's not going to show you how many people they recruited that month. It's not going to show, it's so much more than that. And it's able to find those small wins.
And pulling the numbers from underneath the frontline too. Oh my goodness, wow, they're up to 6,000 team wholesale volume, but they still have a team of 2. We need to dig and see what's going on under them,
Exactly.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any questions? You did a really great job explaining it. They might not have questions.
Oh my God, there's been no questions coming through in the chat. So if you do have a question, type it in the chat.
Let me ask you this. What is your method for capturing the numbers every month? Do you run a report, export it? Do you go in person by person? What do you do?
So this is a good question, because when I was just doing frontline, I was using a form. When I decided to do the team, that's a lot of paper. It's a lot of paper. So I decided to just get in, and I'm an Apple user, get into numbers and make spreadsheets and different tabs for each person. And I organize everything the way that it would pull up in a leadership report without doing any type of sorting, because I like everybody who's behind someone to be behind them in their spreadsheets. So now, because everything's electronic, I can pull up my spreadsheets on this side, and I can pull up the workstation on this side, and I can copy and paste into each one.
Oh,
and that way I'm seeing it as I work. And when I see something, when I'm copying it over, I can change the color of that cell. So that way, when I come back later and I look through things, oh, that's something I want to talk to them about, whether it's a promotion or their first new teamie, or
Do you do that with I'm trying to find a reason to justify having 2 screens. Do you do that with 2 screens actually, or you're going to tell me you split your screen?
No, I literally.
No, tell me I need 2 screens. I want to buy a second monitor.
2 screens. It changed my life having 2 screens. But I'm glad that you asked that question, because honestly, this is, ever since I started your system, this is my binder, and it is so much. It
is a lot.
I honestly feel like it takes a lot of time, but I'm also an Apple user, but I love pen and paper. But at some point I just have to be like, it's better that it's getting done electronically than not at all, because I have to admit that there's times when I'm like overwhelmed and I just can't find the time.
Here's the other thing, Kelly, when you'll notice is that when I started doing this, it was March of last year. So it's been over a year that I've been doing this now. Almost 18 months I've been doing this now. And there's only so many months you can get onto a sheet. So what do you do when you fill out your sheet? Now you got 2 sheets, and you got to go back and forth. So I was like, if I switch this over to electronic, then I've got unlimited numbers that I can just look at everything. And
yeah, I like that. So we do have a question that says, what's the best way to connect? I've tried calls and messages, but it doesn't seem to matter. I get the same 2 or 3 that actually care to chat with me.
Okay, so that's one of the questions that I have in the getting to know you thing, is when I figure out how they like to be communicated with, I make sure that I get that on there, whether it's calls, text, email, Facebook. Marco Polo is another one. But more than anything, continue to reach out, because my sponsor did continue to reach out, and I didn't always send her to voicemail, and I didn't always throw away her mail. Eventually I did connect with her. So keep that in mind. Don't give up on them, because just because this isn't something that, like, honestly, I didn't give a shit at the time, and I'm sorry for saying that, but I really didn't. I was working 60 hours a week as a registered nurse, and I wasn't interested in building a big business with Scentsy. I didn't see the value in it, but eventually I did. And so keep doing the things, but more than anything, feed the people who come to the table. Make dinner for everybody, set the table for everybody, but you can't put them at the table unless they want to come. So just feed the people who come to the table.
I love that. And I personally think that by you doing this, you will find more people that want to connect, because you're being more authentic, you're being genuine, and then they're going to see the difference, and then they'll start coming to the table more on their own.
Oh yeah, for sure, because they're going to see it's not like, hey, checking in to see where your orders are and whether or not we're going to make numbers. So,
and Stacy, by Apple Sheets, it's just Excel. It's number.
Excel.
It's Apple version of Excel.
Yeah.
Will you give us some examples of the kind of connect? I know you do like birthdays, anniversary, Christmas card, but for those people that don't show up on your radar, what are some examples of just a thinking about you card, or what do you do?
Yep. Sometimes I will even go to their Facebook page and just see what's going on in their life and use it as a reason to send a card. A new baby, a wedding, a new house, a loss of a parent, just a sympathy card. There's so many different things that you can use to connect. I love sheet masks, because they're something that you can send for super duper cheap. And sometimes it's just a, hey, take care of yourself type of thing. Or I do smile mail, where it's just, I'm glad that you're part of my team. Haven't connected with you guys in a while, and I appreciate you. Everyone likes to be appreciated.
They sure do. They sure do. Any other questions? You did great. You were wonderful. Thank you.
Quick and snappy, right? Okay.
Quick and snappy. You were fantastic. We will share, for those of you that are paper and pen people that feel that you want to do it on paper and pen, we will share the original documents on the group page. And if you are Excel Apple people, which I'm now going to be, because now I need a second monitor so that I can do this, I am sure that Kelly will explain how to do that, because that's outside my comfort zone, but it is what I totally need to do. So Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. We really appreciate you.
Oh, you're so welcome, but now you owe me one, so.
Oh, I owe you big, yes.
Well, soon.
Anytime. All you have to do is ask.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for
Thank
having me,
you.
guys. Go feed my kid now, and we'll talk to you another time.
All right,
Okay.
bye.
See ya.
Bye, guys.